Welcome to Wawa Sunwire. Today we're talking about the netizens' reaction toward Chuan's criticism regarding the Transport Ministry's pretty strict enforcement against overloaded heavy vehicles.
And it's a huge topic. This really isn't just about transport policy, is it? It's a political landmine. And it shows a massive disconnect between, well, what the industry expects and what the public is demanding for safety.
Absolutely. So let's unpack this. The Ministry of Transport, under Minister Loke has kicked off what is basically a zero-tolerance crackdown on overloaded lorries.
And we have to be clear here, this isn't a new law.
Not at all. It's the sudden, very stringent application of laws that have been on the books for decades. And that sudden change has just ignited a huge political and economic firestorm.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. When enforcement of an old law suddenly jumps from, say, 20% to 100%, it's going to cause an earthquake.
Oh, sure.
It forces this classic battle between short-term economic stability, the profit margins of logistics companies, and the absolute non-negotiable need for public safety.
So let's start with the political criticism, which was really led by the Deputy National Youth Chief of the Malaysian Chinese Association, Chuan. He did not hold back.
No, he didn't. He straight up labeled it an iron fist strategy.
An iron fist, yeah. A one-size-fits-all, high-pressure approach. His argument really focused on the shock of it all.
Yes. He argues that even if the law is correct, the way they implemented it was just fundamentally wrong. It was immediate, it was sudden, and it was comprehensive, with no dialogue or adjustment period for the businesses.
And he said the consequence was unprecedented chaos.
Unprecedented chaos. And according to the Malaysian Chinese Association, this is hitting the small and medium-sized enterprises, the SMEs, the hardest, like a tidal wave.
They're arguing these smaller guys just can't absorb the cost of suddenly needing, twice the number of trucks overnight?
Right, or completely changing their entire logistics chain on a dime. And this is where his institutional critique gets really interesting. He admits, yes, Loke is just enforcing old laws. But he says that when past administrations allowed decades of lax enforcement, that basically created an industry custom. It became the default way of doing things.
So everyone just got used to it?
Everyone got used to it. And when you suddenly yank that standard away, the shock is, as he puts it, unbearable for companies that built their entire financial models around overloading by 10 or 20% without any real consequences.
And there's a number to that economic consequence, isn't there? A headline-grabbing figure.
There is. Chuan pointed to industry reports saying the cost of raw materials and construction supplies, things like cement and aggregates, has already jumped by at least 20%.
Wow, 20%.
A 20% spike isn't just a small adjustment. It suggests the whole system was relying on something illegal to function.
So if the cost of doing business legally is 1/5 higher, it really implies that the old profit margins were, while they were subsidized by breaking the law.
You have to ask, right, was the entire construction supply chain built on illegal weight allowances?
Yeah.
This is a very uncomfortable question.
And if that's the case, the argument basically becomes, we need to break the law to keep prices low.
Which is a tough argument to make publicly. But the Malaysian Chinese Association didn't just criticize. They did offer some concrete solutions. They tried to shift the debate.
Okay, so what was their plan?
Well, first, they called for a formal consultation platform. They want to negotiate, not just get orders from the Ministry of Transport. They feel the industry's voice, especially the SMEs, just isn't being heard.
And they also demanded a buffer period, a transition.
Exactly. Phased enforcement. Start with lighter penalties and then ramp them up over a few months and run education campaigns alongside that. They argue that any reform has to be practical.
Practical meaning what? Training? Money?
Both. Proper industry training and, this is the big one, financial support for SMEs that are really struggling to comply. Maybe help them upgrade their fleets.
That makes sense. They also push for more transparency.
Yes. They want the data. Show us the accident rates, share the enforcement analysis, justify this crackdown with hard evidence that the public can see.
And there was one more point, a very humane one about the drivers.
I'm glad you brought that up. They want to reform the summons system to protect the low-income drivers who are often the ones hit with these huge fines. They suggested installment plans or maybe restructuring the fines.
So it's a pretty comprehensive set of proposals.
It is. It's aimed at softening the blow.
Wow.
But, and this is the core of the conflict, the minister's side is basically saying none of this should be up for negotiation.
Because at the end of the day, overloading is illegal. It always has been.
That's the bottom line. The minister's position is zero compromise on safety. And this raises a huge question for all of us, really.
Which is,
Should the government negotiate how to enforce a law just because previous governments chose to look the other way?
yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, if the law's there, why should a business that knowingly breaks it get a special grace period, while a competitor who followed the rules all along has been struggling?
Exactly. And stakeholders are arguing that the lives of road users are just. They're infinitely more important than the profit margins of logistics companies.
Human life is at stake.
It is. Overloaded lorries contribute massively to fatal accidents, and they destroy our roads. The money saved by overloading is paid for by taxpayers through road repairs, and tragically, by families through loss of life.
So that 20% price increase, it's just the real legal cost of doing business, a cost that was hidden before.
It was hidden by breaking the law. And that clarity, that moral clarity, is precisely what defined the reaction from netizens when this whole thing went public.
The reaction was pretty immediate, wasn't it? And very one-sided.
Oh, it was swift and overwhelming. The public comments were strongly in favor of the strict enforcement, and they were incredibly critical of the Malaysian Chinese Association's intervention.
What was the main theme you saw?
The main theme was timing and motive. Netizens were just relentlessly asking why the Malaysian Chinese Association, or the coalition they were part of, didn't do this when they were in charge of the transport ministry for decades.
That's a powerful point.
It creates a lot of cynicism, a feeling that they're only criticizing now because they're out of power. The general feeling was that past governments let illegal behavior become a habit, and now the current government is just cleaning up the mess.
I saw one comment that summed it up so well. It was something like, you couldn't do it, now Luke Fook is doing it, and you criticize. That is contradictory.
Exactly. It shows a real frustration with what people see as political hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about ignoring the economic pain. It was about choosing safety and the rule of law first.
So people are willing to take the hit economically.
It seems so. Many comments sarcastically pointed out that arguing against strict enforcement means you think the lack of enforcement in the past was a good thing.
Yeah, it's a difficult position to defend.
The sentiment was so clear. The law has always been there. Why is violating it justified? And that simple, powerful line you saw everywhere. Life is more important than anything else.
For the average person driving on the road every day, seeing these massive trucks, I guess the choice is pretty clear.
And that brings us to the Malaysian Chinese Association's central demand for that buffer period.
The grace period.
Yes. And the public absolutely shredded that idea. They used all sorts of analogies to show how absurd the request was.
Right, it was an immediate rejection. People were like, why would you negotiate on something that's already illegal?
The analogies were brilliant because they just cut through all the political noise.
What were some of them?
Well, netizens were mocking the idea, asking if you'd give a grace period to a thief to spend their stolen money before you arrest them.
That's a good one.
It just shows that asking for a grace period to violate a safety law it's fundamentally illogical to most people.
So the general feeling online was what? Suck it up.
Pretty much. If you want reform, there will be pain. Stop acting like the industry needs to commit crimes just to survive. That was the vibe.
And that totally shifts the burden of responsibility.
It does. The public consensus seems to be that businesses who failed to plan for legal compliance, even though they knew the law was there, they shouldn't be rewarded with an exemption.
It's not fair to the companies who are following the law all along.
Exactly. It suggests people are willing to accept some economic turbulence if it means safer roads and, restoring the integrity of the law. The message to the industry and the politicians was pretty clear. The industry must adapt to the law, not the other way around.
So this whole controversy really it pulls back the curtain on a much larger issue.
It really does. It forces all of us to confront whether our economic efficiency, especially in sectors like construction and logistics, has become dependent on bending or breaking safety rules.
It really questions the integrity of the whole economic structure that was built during those years of lax enforcement.
It does.
So I guess that leaves a big question for everyone listening. Is the short-term economic pain of strictly enforcing these laws, which mean higher costs for all of us, is it worth the long-term gain in road safety and legal integrity? What do you think?
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.